that brings us to the first picture over here. Which one is the one which expands horizontally and not much vertically? Here, the first one expands horizontally a bit, vertically no. So this, from the three different examples, we understand that a straight grain is most suitable for the garment. Now you would be wondering, when the bias one stretches in both the direction, then why not this one? We will come to that. This is a special case, so we'll come to that. In these two, straight grain and the cross grain, the straight one is the one which is preferred for the body. Now then, what to do about the cross grain? We don't use this, or do we use this? Let's see. So straight grain, to make it easy for you to understand, I have put a picture over here of a mat. If you've seen the mat made of the grass, so the vertically is the grass and horizontal is a thread. So if you are having a difficulty in understanding the grain through the picture here, illustration here, you can see here. So if you see this mat, it rolls vertically, it can roll. I mean, horizontally it can roll. Vertically you cannot roll this because the grass is vertical, it's straight, it's stretched. So if you can compare this to the fabric, no, the fabric is not so stiff vertically, but there is warp which is stiffer than the weft. So this will help you understand how the fabric folds and rolls on the body. Now the drape, the straight grain, we saw that is the most suitable for the garments. The first one comes here in the straight grain is the drape. Drape means the way the fabric. So the way the fabric rolls on the body is the drape. The way the fabric sits on the body, flows on the body is the drape. Now, if you see this aspect, this mat can roll around the body comfortably. It cannot roll vertically. Similarly, the fabric over here, warp is straight and stretched vertically, and the weft is horizontal. So the weft can actually take a shape of the body and it can roll around the body, because if you remember, weft is not straight, weft is slightly curvy. It's little going up and down in a curve. That means it gives this an opportunity to shape it according to the body curves horizontally. The second is the stretch. Stretches according to the body requirement. We saw through the picture that this grain stretches according to the requirement of the body. Then the next is the fall. Fall is related to ground or the gravity. Fall means the way actually fabric falls down. Now the fabric falls down because of the gravity. Now this one, because it does not stretch vertically when you put a fabric and make a garment with this grain, it will not stretch vertically, which is a good thing for the garment because it will not get distorted. So the garment will not go out of the shape, even if a garment is a floor length garment, if it is done on a vertical grain. Even though there is a gravity, there is a lot of weight in the garment, it will not sag down. So that is the quality of this particular grain. And let's see some examples. So uses of straight grain. So there is a small picture on the body form that this vertical warp is the straight grain. It really helps when you have some gathers, use of straight grain, or a top which is a little loose top or even a fitted top. The straight grain means warp going vertically is can be used and it is suitable. This is the grain which is used this is the grain which is used maximum time. in the trousers also, in the top also, in most of the places, this is what is used. Now, coming to the second one, cross grain. Now, what happens if you cut a garment on the cross grain? Means you put your pattern in such a way where the warp runs horizontally, weft runs vertically. So here is another picture in terms of, if you want to see it in terms of how it will be if it is stiffer yarn and not so stiffer warp and not so stiffer weft. So if you see these pictures, you will understand that the fabric can roll vertically, but it cannot roll horizontally so well. But our body grows horizontally. So the drape does not roll on the body comfortably. So when you make a garment which is on the cross grain, you can actually see it will not sit properly on the body. From far, you can make out that it is on the cross grain because it will not drape on the body as good as the previous grain would sit. Then the second is stretch. Does not stretch according to the body requirement. We saw the body grows horizontally. Here the warp is horizontal. So here it will not stretch according to the body requirement. If the garment is really fitted, people will have real problem breathing. Then the third one is fall. The fall is according to the gravity, along the gravity, how the fabrics actually falls down. It stretches vertically because the weft is vertical. Because the weft is vertical, it stretches vertically. Thus, the garment may sag down. If it is a small top, it will not sag down. But if it is a floor length or a longer length garment, there are chances that it may sag down and the garment may go out of the shape. So now what to do, where to use this particular grain? So cross grain uses when the warp goes horizontal. There's no horizontal stretchability, vertically a bit. That means we need to see what is the strength of this grain. The strength of this grain is horizontally it does not stretch. So vertically it stretches is the aspect which we don't want. So we see the positive aspect of this grain, which is a horizontal way where it does not stretch, means it gives more strength if it is pulled horizontally both the sides. So using it in such a way where there is a horizontal pull in the garment. So the one here is the collar. So collar is a long piece and collar has a pull on because it's a long piece. Both the side, there are always chances that it can be pulled both the sides if there's no fusing inside. So using this grain on the collar pattern will help the collar to not stretch horizontally and it will stay in the shape. Same goes for the waistband. The waistband is supposed to be cut on the cross grain so that it does not stretch. So every time you wear a trouser, if it is not done on this grain, if it's done on other grains and there is no fusing, there are chances that the waistline may stretch and it will never come back because it's a woven garment. Now, next is using it on the yoke. So the yoke is a small piece on the top. Here you can see this one particularly. On this, the cross grain can be used because the purpose of the yoke at times is to provide strength to the garment. And because this, in this particular garment, if you see, this vertical there is a weight and this grain is horizontal, you can see the stripes and understand. So two layers of the yoke gives lot of strength and this yoke helps the lower part of the garment to fall freely. So if this top which has a small yoke and the long length, however longer the length is, the yoke will be able to handle the weight because yoke is horizontal here. Now, coming to the third grain, which is the bias grain. So, bias grain rolls and sits on the body really comfortably. It stretches according to the body requirement. It falls. So, these two are what we require. Sitting on the body comfortably, it does. Stretching according to the body, it does. About the fall, it stretches vertically also. Horizontal stretches good. When it stretches vertically, thus the garment may sag down, or it actually sags down if it is the big garment. That is why the bias grain has a limited use. So let's see, where do we use this bias grain and how it actually works. So bias grain, seeing little in detail, this one side you can see as consider as warp, one side you can consider as weft. So on the bias grain, this is how the fabric is falling on the body in this angle. So if there is a pull on horizontal both the side, if for example if you are having a top and you pull it horizontally, this is how it is going to stretch and provide the stretch. So there is little gap in between here, you can see, and these gaps, they change, and there is because of the pull, horizontal pull, and the fabric distorts in order to give the fit. So if it is a fitted blouse, this is how it's going to stretch and fit on the body. Now, so here we understand that if there is a garment which is fitted, this grain can actually support the fit. The second here is, if this is pulled vertically, that happens usually when because of the gravity, and also when you are wearing a garment, probably if you're wearing a shirt, that is good enough for this force, because if you are just adjusting your garment also, there can be a pull down, and because of that, this is what happens, the fabric gets a little distorted and it goes longer in the length. That means even though garment is made, it the length may go longer. Specifically, if the whole garment is a non-bias grain, the whole garment may go longer, like the skirts. But if it is, that is perfectly fine. But if it is a garment which is combination of straight grain and the cross bias grain, so there it will have a problem. So here let's see this small video. If you can just relate to the previous picture, this is how, if there is a vertical pull, this is what happens to the yarn. This is really exaggerated video. If there is a force horizontally, this is how it moves. So the fabric can stretch and compress in horizontal and vertical direction both when there is a bias grain. Horizontal stretch happens because of the body, vertical stretch happens because of the ground. We learned there are these two aspects, body and the ground. Then the uses of bias grain when the warp is on a 45-degree angle. So here again we use the grain according to its strength. What is the strength? It stretches. So it is used in finishings. So finishings which are round necks. So big round necks or pipings, all of these are round. They are part of a circle, and the bias stretches. So when it stretches, it can go and sit and give the finishing of the neckline really well. There is another garment over here. You can see that there is a straight grain and there is a bias grain also along here. Now, if you see these two parts, the straight grain will remain the same in length, while the bias grain, if you pull it down here, it will stretch. And there are chances that it might not go back to the length. So because of this reason, when the skirts are made, the big skirts or the lehengas are made, there is automatically straight grain, cross grain, bias grain happening in the garment everywhere because it's a huge fabric. So the skirt are put on the dress form, on the body form for 24 hours so that the because of the force of the gravity, wherever the grain is biased on the skirt, it can sag down, and after that, once it has sag down as much as it wants to according to the gravity, then the hemline is chopped. That is when the horizontal length of the garment is created after 24 hours, because the the gravity, it may sag down. If you don't do so and you finish the garment just after cutting, there are chances it will sag down later on, and then it will create an uneven hemline. So that is not going to be good. So this is the you have to be careful while using the grain on the garment, but you can comfortably use the bias grain on the areas where it requires circles, it when it requires curves. So that is about the bias grain.